Hello everyone, odedex here and welcome to another video tutorial. This time around I'm going to show you how you can create your very own automatic mushroom farming using Redpower and optionally also wireless redstone by Chicken Bones and also ender chests by Chicken Bones. So as you can see, this is pretty much the farm in action. I have zero interfacing with it, it's doing everything automatically. And as you can see, it farms a mushroom, a large mushroom, and goes through the cycle of breaking it, replanting it, and doing everything all over again. While all the product is available to me through this chest, and also the actual deployer, making sure that the farm is growing, is also being refilled by the same product. So pretty much whenever this deployer will be full, all the excess mushroom will be available here. So as you can see, it's running automatically, looping pretty much infinitely, and as always, first let me explain what's going on and then I can show you actually on how to build it. Let's just let 1 cycle complete. You can actually turn it off right here and it will complete the cycle. Now this very much relies on two projects that I made in the past. It kind of has the same principle of my tree farm that you can go check that out if you're interested, and also on my Redpower quarry it has a little bit of the same logic. Okay, so right here the main principle is right here, as you can see. Okay, so to give you guys an example on how exactly the redstone principle works, this is a vanilla rule, meaning that if you give a redstone signal through obviously a block of air, the signal will not go through. If you give it through something like half a block, or say a sapling for example, it still doesn't work, but whenever I give it through a solid block, the signal does go through. So, and that also includes a sapling, or for that matter a mushroom, at a full grown state. So this is the first thing to keep in mind. Now the reason I actually showed you guys the example using a sapling instead of a mushroom is because of another rule, and that's again another vanilla rule, and more like a limitation on mushrooms. You cannot plant them on light levels higher than 12, and you can see that on the second to last or first to last line on the left on my screen. You can actually see that because I have a very large building here that blocks light, you can see the number goes down from 15 to 14 to 13 to 12, and right at the center it's actually 11. So this is why planting of mushrooms is allowed, and you also need to keep that rule in mind, which is something about the frame moving, but I'm gonna get to that later. So whenever a mushroom grows, the signal goes through into this Redpower pulse former. That pulse former goes into this toggle. This repeater is towards this direction, so it has no significance while this redstone comes from here. And the reason I'm using a pulse former is because this signal will be static. As long as the mushroom block is here, it will remain. So this is why I'm using a pulse former. That pulse former will trigger that toggle latch, so it will stop locking the timer. And that timer has 3 jobs. The first one is going to wireless network 10. Now this is where I'm using wireless redstone. If you really want to, you don't have to use it. You're simply going to have to do some trickery with jacketed wire or some other solution, but it can be avoided. However, it makes things a lot more convenient and comfortable to work with. So signal 10 is this signal right here. This is the receiver 10, which is simply connected through jacketed wire to the entire block breaking machine. So basically every time the timer ticks, all my block breakers go off, meaning they'll try to break something. At the same time, it also triggers this counter, which counts to 7. And 7 is a specific number. 7 is the height difference between the sapling and the bottommost block breaker. And actually, I'm gonna turn it on quickly so I can get rid of the mushroom in here, so you can actually see it. But while it's breaking, you can see that this counter is being ticked. Whenever it reaches 7, it's gonna switch sides. It's gonna basically tick to that line right there, and that line going through here, coming through here, will trigger that toggle latch. Now this logic right here is something that I kind of used from my Redpower quarry. I'm going to get to it right in a moment. So as you can see, the block difference, the height difference between the mushroom and the bottommost block breaker is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's that number. That's why it's there. So that's the signal to that counter. And the third signal from that timer goes through here. Now this is just a normal null cell, meaning that there are two signals, one coming from here into here and one coming from there into there, and they're not interacting with each other whatsoever. It's simply a simple intersection of two signals, just a basic solution to make things more compact. You don't really have to use it. You can simply take the signal, go all the way around, and then you don't need it, but it simply makes things easier. So that third signal from the timer comes into here. Again, right here I have the same logic null cell, so it's simply two intersecting signals into those AND gates. There are two AND gates here with that toggle latch in the middle, toggling in between which signal to go through. So, for example, right now it's set to this one. So this one is toggled on. It's only waiting for the timer signal to come through. This one will not trigger because it doesn't have this signal. And after a repeated delay, it will go into signal 11. Signal 11 is this one. And that signal 11 goes through to that motor, which will push things down. So that will happen for 7 times, and it will, after 7 times, this counter will trigger, causing for two things. The first one is making this toggle latch switch. So all the signals from the timer coming from here on forward will go into this AND gate, into this not receiver, but transmitter, which goes to this receiver, receiver 12, and that motor which pulls everything to go up. And also at the same time, that same signal goes into here, into that counter, which counts only up to 2. So it will count 1 and then twice and resets itself. And at the moment of resetting, this toggle latch will be toggled back off or on, depends on how you're looking at it, to lock the timer in place. And a repeater on full delay will cause the remaining mushrooms that I have here to be transferred into this deployer using this filter. The same signal actually deploying a mushroom. And after a delayed signal, which I just cut off, also applying bone meal. Now you don't actually have to use bone meal if you don't want to, but it's recommended. And you can actually, if you really want to, you can actually use a corium soil to boost the speed of which things grow. And it should apply to mushrooms as well. So if we look at everything in action, right now this turned on, it's waiting for this mushroom to grow. So this will also work if you don't actually use bone meal. It will work naturally if you, again, don't want to use it. But let's speed things up. Let's apply bone meal. The signal goes through. This timer ticks. Those motor push everything down, and the logic says that every time the block breakers work first, and only then the movement occurs, and this is on purpose. This is why the repeaters are in place right here. And all those block breakers are connected through redstone frame tubes, which are all connected to this ender chest, which is basically my collection chest. Again, I'm using the ender chest. You can simply place a normal chest right here or find some other method to connect it normally with some tubes. You can do it without too much trouble. And simply this pillar of frames to support the movement going up and down. And pretty much that's it. The only thing else I should mention is you can clearly see I have one block breaker which extends one block down compared to the rest of them, and this is on purpose because obviously if you look at the way things look right there, in order to make this thing cycle infinitely, I have to get rid of this bottom block. But at the same time, if all of those block breakers were on the same plane, like on the same flat plane, taking this bottom mushroom block would also mean breaking this, basically everything here. So this is very simply why the most center block breaker is kind of sticking out. It's kind of on purpose. Okay, so let's actually build one. Okay, so when you're ready to build it, simply choose your basically your place where you want to set it up. Designate it with whatever you want. For me, I'm going to build it kind of nearby, so I can use this as a reference while I'm building it. So let's get started. So let's assume I'd like to have my mushroom growing right here. So I'm going to have my deployer right here. Our deployer on basically mirrored. That will be for bone meal. And I'm going to have normal repeaters. I'm only using normal repeaters. You can actually use Redpower repeaters if you want to, but it's not a must. Just like this. And on the beginning of everything, I'm going to need one more lever. And turn it on. Now, from that repeater, I'm going to have a pulse former. So, where is it? Well, one pulse former, just like this. From the pulse former, we're going to have red alloy wire, and not directly the toggle latch, because I also want to have a future repeater coming from this side. So I'm going to need to have red alloy wire so I can interface with the actual toggle latch. So right there, I'm going to actually have my toggle latch, just like this. And first it will be toggled towards this direction to actually keep the thing locked. I'm going to have my timer right here. And right here, I'm going to have my transmitters. Now, I'm going to arbitrarily pick a number. Let's say 20 will be mush mine. Set name. Okay. From the timer right here, I'm going to have one red alloy wire right there. And here I'm going to actually need a counter. That counter will be counting to 7. And will be looping into itself once it reaches the crucial point. Right here I'm going to have a repeater and another one, both set to maximum delay. And right here I'm going to have a normal null cell, just like this. Right here I'm going to have an alloy strip to separate from this signal coming from here, looking like this. And actually I want to break this and build a null cell instead. So this is my two entry points to my logical up and logical down. And right here I'm going to have my AND gates. So let's take my AND gates and place them like this, one here, and a toggle latch right there. And with a screwdriver, I'm going to disable the logical access points of the outside inputs because I'm simply not interested in them, just like so. I'm going to have this signal coming from here, and using strip, simply gonna separate the signal. Again, using just cobblestone cover strips, you can use any material, just use cover strip to separate those signals. And from here, I'm gonna use two redstone repeaters, and I'm gonna set them up on 2 ticks delay, so basically, or 3 ticks delay to be more precise. And on the end of them, 2 transmitters. Let's say right will be going down, so let's set if 20 is mush mine, then 21 will be mush down, set name, and this one will be 22 with mush up, set name. Obviously I've already used the same pretty much names, so this is just for the sake of example. So this is pretty much completed. Lastly, I'm going to make sure that I actually fix the actual logic, break it basically. So from this repeater right here, I'm gonna send a signal into another counter, which will be counting only up to 2, so 2 maximum and 2 decrement. On reset, it's gonna loop into itself and into this repeater right here, and also apply redstone signal into this deployer. Actually, yeah, I actually want to have another repeater right here to make sure that the signal is delayed. I think I want to be, yeah, I'm going to be on max delay. So maximum delay into this repeater, And for the sake of actually making this fully autonomous, I'm actually gonna also apply a filter right here, which will be pulling from the result chest. And I'm going to use the same brown chests. Or actually, no, let's go... okay, I'm gonna use the same brown chests. So, kind of for the sake of this example, it will be quite silly, but yeah. So let's break this chest and also this one and simply use them. Save a little bit of time. So using the brown chest, this is where mushrooms will be pulled from. Let's give it a quick start in the beginning. And if I want to use bone meal as well, obviously I'm going to have to resupply it with bone meal, but with the help of not enough items, I can just put some in here and it will help me get started. And just to get to the signal there, I'm going to use some red alloy wire going all around, and I'm going to apply 2 repeaters on full delay on purpose. Actually, I want to kind of skip this. Okay, just like so. And there you go. This is pretty much the logic completed. Okay, so now let's get to the actual building part of the block breaking mechanism, which is actually a lot simpler than it might be looking. So the size we're going to go for is a 7 by 7 with the corners broken, because you simply do not need them. They're simply unnecessary. Mushrooms don't grow like a square, they grow kind of like this. While the center block breaker is kind of pointing outside. So the distance will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is where the block breaker will be. So I'm going to use some Redpower redstone frame tubes to be able to both move things and control, basically use them as frames, use them as tubes, and use them as redstone transmitting device. This will be block breaker, so I'm kind of just using this as a quick reference, and apply a block breaker right here. Let's get a little bit more to work with. Okay. So this will be a block breaker. Again, let's make sure. So this will be a mushroom. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks difference between the block breaker pointing out into the sapling point. And from here, going outward, simply build 3 in every direction and complete the square while leaving out the corners, because you simply, again, you don't need them. Mushrooms don't grow like this. So that's one side completed. And by the way, as I'm building this, if I turn on the debugging screen, you can actually see now the light actually changes underneath the block breakers. And this will have, again, as I've said previously, this will actually have a crucial effect on some of the logic, and also why there is a repeater right here, and I'm actually gonna get to it, but yeah, just in a moment. Let's complete the actual block breakers. So there we go. And again, you want to have everything connected with Redpower frame tubes. So they are all held together. They all connect to the same tubing network, so all the output goes into the same chest, and they all receive the same signal. Okay, so from the center block, you want to be making a pillar of 10 frames going upwards. The first one has to be a frame tube, but the next 9 don't really have to be. However, I'm simply going to use them for the sake of simplicity. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. On one of those sides, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna use a panel. I like using ruby block panels because they're red and I kind of like the color. And I'm gonna need some alloy wire, and I'm also going to need some jacketed wire. So this is how I basically interface with the redstone. So alloy wire on the panel, jacketed wire right here, and a wireless receiver right here. That will be receiving the mining the mush mine signal. So every time the timer ticks, it will first mine without any delay. Right above that, I'm actually going to create a small platform using cobblestone. And if you'll pay close attention, you'll actually see that at no point any cobblestone actually touches the frame. So those that are just placed are kind of just help blocks, but they're going to be removed. And right here, I'm going to be placing my 2 frame motors. So that's 1, that's 2. Which one it's at which direction doesn't actually make any difference. So arbitrarily I'm going to say that this one will be going down, this one will be going up. An easy way to see it if you're having trouble seeing the arrow is actually, if you look on the side, there is this black blob. Right now you can see that the majority of the blob is facing towards upwards, so it means it's gonna go up, while right here it kind of looks downwards. So an easy way to tell it which direction it's gonna go. And I'm gonna have my 2 receivers here again, so 1 here and 1 here. This one is the motor which goes up. So, oh sorry, this one is the one that goes down. So let's go for mush down. And this one is going up, so let's go for mush up. And to complete it, I'm gonna need some sort of a bluetricity. So let's just create a small area using cobblestone blocks, just so everything is nicely connected. Use some batteries. Should have some batteries, or let's just get some more. Yeah, I knew I had some. And just use the batteries. I like placing them right next to the motors themselves, and simply place a couple of solar panels all around. I'm building this on an eternal day, so it's kind of convenient. You may want to use a larger supply of batteries just to make sure that you may last the night in case you're building it on a normal cycle world. But this should be fine for my example. And if I did everything correct, this should be working. I'm actually going to go in reference to my original build to kind of eyeball it to see that everything kind of makes sense. Everything seems to be looking relatively okay. I think I can actually turn it on and it will work. And okay, let's give it a try. So let's kickstart it with the first mushroom. So place it down, and obviously, again, an example, I cannot place it anywhere here, but I can place it here, and more importantly, you can place it right here. So turn it on, apply bone meal to make it go faster. The signal goes through, the thing starts to go down. Every time you break a layer of blocks and then goes down, it will keep breaking, break again, and again, and again. When it reaches the critical level, it goes up instead of going down. And once it reaches the highest most point, it's gonna replant a mushroom and apply bone meal. And there you have it. Now, as I've said twice, and I said I'm gonna address this thing later. Ooh, actually forgot to place an ender chest. This is derpy of me. Okay, so as you can see, the block breakers tried to break something which had nowhere to go, so this is why it looks like this. And it's still trying to go. Okay, let's do this and reset the signal using a redstone torch right here. Okay, this is kind of derpy of me. Forgot to place an ender chest, so the block breakers have nowhere to go, where to place their block breaking things. Now, as I've said regarding the light, you can see this is simply a property of frames. If you look at the light levels, you can see how they're changing. When the blocks are stationary, in contrast to where they're moving, you can see that the value is moving between 15 and 11. And this is the critical point, and also why I actually have a delay on this deployer, because I want to make sure that the blocks are at the final position of being stationary and not still moving, because if they're still moving, the deployer cannot actually place a mushroom. Okay, so that was it. Kind of a lengthy tutorial, but I think it's a very convenient tool to use, and you can actually if you really want to, you can apply overall the same logic of breaking something by going up and down on most trees or things that grow, which actually are a little bit more complicated than a simple tree farm. And if you're still not sure what's the difference here between a mushroom and a tree farm, is I actually have one running right here. I don't know if it's running or... yeah, I think it's actually turned off. I don't know. The difference is that leaves despawn. They both despawn, and actually trees can actually grow through them. And this is a key difference between mushrooms and trees, and which simply does not apply to mushrooms. The mushroom blocks are the critical blocks, the one that you're actually interested in, and the ones that have the chance to drop mushrooms, while the leaves aren't, so this is why it's kind of different. Alright, so as always, if you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.